What is up, y'all? This is In the Image Clothing Company Podcast. Today is the 5th of January, 2025. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, a clothing company that is much more than that. We address the human body's natural function, coming at it through the skeletal system, because the fat content comes and goes, and so does the muscle mass. But our foundation, just like what we are founded upon, being called In the Image Clothing Company, we are universally designed in the image of our living God, who is Jesus Christ, and we are commanded to build our foundations upon the rock, which is Christ himself. So, man, I'm choking on something, but yeah. This is In the Image Clothing Company Podcast. We have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ within this. We have two other sides to us, though. What I do call the main company side of things, which is where we address the anatomy of the human body and clothing and those relationships there, and what clothing is doing, getting us into these chronic patternings, because we just allow our bodies to work and get out of these chronic patternings that clothing has caused. But we also talk about sleeping, eating, walking, standing, just doing things naturally with the human body, living in such an unnatural, man-made 2025. So, yeah, let's give a little bit of a rundown on some clothing stuff, and then we'll get right into this episode. So, clothing for everybody, man, woman, tall, short, skinny, or fat, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter your age, doesn't matter. Pants need to be entirely above the hips, slightly higher in the front than in the rear with the waistband of our pants, because our core, like our abdominal muscles, what you would call the abs, at least around here, that's what we call them, that being the core, would always stay activated. That's the center of our whole body, and it provides stabilization from there out on both ends, up and down. But it's common nowadays in 2025 for people to have a deactivated core, which is something that should never happen. But if there's clothing placed on your body that's pulling your skeletal system out of its natural position and your musculature is trying to combat that, it's a fight that no human being could ever win. So that's how pants need to sit. Now, tops that we wear, the seams on the tops of our shoulders need to sit behind the little bone that's at the edge of our shoulders up there. That's the other end of our collarbones. And that just allows our shoulders to be in their neutral position. For button-up shirts or shirts that have this band across the top of material, it's different because that whole strip of material is essentially what just a singular seam would be, and it's all behind the shoulder. And then right at the very edges of our shoulders is where the edge seams should be, because that's where our shoulders rotate in that shoulder capsule, that socket up there. So, in addition to just having clothing fit correct, where the body works, we also have two prerequisites as in the Image Clothing Company, just to allow the body to stay unaltered or get back to being unaltered after being in these chronic patternings caused by the things that we do discuss. So, shoelacing technique of ours in the Image Clothing Companies is one of our two prerequisites. With that, we just need to tie our shoes evenly over toward the inside on both feet, toward the center of our being, and you can find how to do the technique that we use wherever you find us online. It's 2025 currently, you can find us. Now, secondly, to the shoelacing is to remove all the tags from clothing, all of them, even within the tongues of the shoes, because whether they're in the tongues of the shoes or anywhere inside of them, they're either affecting the ankle's ability to naturally dorsiflex or plantar flex, or it's affecting that gripped arch within the foot that is naturally there. So all tags from within clothing removed, and there are our two prerequisites. Okay, so let's get into this episode of In the Image Clothing Company Podcast. This is episode 32, and this is titled One Eternal Round. Now, within the gospel of Jesus Christ, there's scriptures talking about how our God's course is one eternal round. There's scriptures talking about how our God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He is an unchanging, eternal, perfect being. He knows all. He sees all. He loves perfectly. And everything that he does is the same from the beginning to the end. He can't go back on his word. His word never comes to a void. He is the perfect promise keeper. All of these things go along with the idea of having one eternal round. Because if there's like a line you draw and draw a circle, it comes back to itself. It's always the same as it was when it started. There's no edges or ends to a circle. It's all just evenly one eternal line. And there's a lot of stuff within life that we know of, even if you don't know much about like doctrine within the gospel of Jesus Christ. I always have mentioned this within just when I'm spreading the gospel and talking about it this way. People know the gospel. Everybody knows the gospel. The gospel of Jesus Christ is the truth of all things. It doesn't matter if you've ever read any passage of scripture from the Holy Bible or from the Book of Mormon, these true historical records and words of our living God, you still know the gospel because it's all around you. Our God created us in his image. He created this world and everything in and on it for us to come down here and just experience this little blip of a life that we have, and then we go back home. That's really what's going on. Don't believe me? This is a good time to say that. I say that all the time within In the Image Clothing Company. Do not believe me, Evan Strong, the founder. Do not believe our company. Don't believe just the words that are coming out of our mouths. But we're just speaking on universal truth to the best of our sinful by nature human being abilities. Because we talk about things within the human body that you don't have to believe. And in fact, I don't want you to believe me, because I don't want anyone to believe other human beings. We're all just equals, and we're all just messing up left and right. But what we can learn from is each other's mistakes, and what we can know is the truth that we all have the opportunity to know. It's not about because some other human being said something. But if I'm discussing truth, then it doesn't matter if it's coming out of my mouth or that guy's or this girl's. And that goes for everybody on any end of what that could possibly be. So, yeah, we make mistakes and mess up, but yeah, don't believe me with what I'm discussing ever. Because truth manifests itself within you. You don't have to believe it. In fact, there's been many times within my life where I have tried to deny the truth of the gospel of Jesus Christ, which is the truth of all things. So now me just being the same human being and walking around this earth, I'm trying to deny what's right in front of my face, and you can't. Now, you can try to, but it doesn't change that it's true. We don't get to choose what's true. We can't change what's true. It's just truth. One eternal round. So, within our lives, that's what I'm saying, is if you've never like actually heard the gospel in the sense of it like being spoken about as the gospel of Jesus Christ, we hear things like the circle of life. Again, it's a circle. Everything just does what it does. Even our understanding of time, like, this is funny actually. This is like a visual way you can see it. Like a traditional analog clock, like a clock with hands on it, right? It goes from 12 through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and back to 12, and it's just a circle. That's essentially the same thing. As human beings, we are dictated by time. As far as, that's how we measure things. We're dictated by our God, but we are measured by time as, like, I'm 25 years old. The year is 2025. It's been 2025 years since our God was born onto this earth in human form as the man Jesus Christ. We measure things by time. We schedule things by time. We think about memories through time. We think about the amount of life that we have before we're dead by time. Like, we measure things by time, and when you look at one of those clocks that's a circle, it just keeps on spinning in a circle. It doesn't go anywhere. It just keeps going around and around and around. One eternal round. So, yeah. The circle of life, though, as well. I mean, you think about just things die, and then they decompose into the earth, and then what was once a living thing is now just nutrients that can feed another human or another living thing, and then it grows, and then it dies, and then it just cycles. Our human flesh is the same way, same thing. I mean, our bodies are just a vessel. We are not this body. You don't believe me, but we're just not. I mean, it's really obvious once you see it for as it is. And yeah, we are spirit children of our living God, and we're just given this vessel, this mechanical machine to send us through this life, to just do what we need to in this lifetime. So, yeah, there's a scripture that says we are pulled from the clay, meaning our bodies are just earth, and they are. There's no dispute. We just eat the things that come out of the ground, like I was just kind of starting to discuss. So we eat plants, or if you eat meat, then we eat meat as well as human beings. That's something that we can digest. I'm vegetarian is the reason I worded it like that. So, and all we do as human flesh is become those things that we've eaten. And then once we don't need those things in our bodies anymore, it comes out of our digestive system. Well, our digestive system throughout the endocrine system. And, even our skin. It's somewhere, I don't know if this is exactly the correct amount of years, but it's something around like every 7 years. If that's not quite right, then just, there's times in our lives we get entirely new skin, because our skin will kind of flake off, and our skin has layers. So the layers underneath will come up as the ones on top come off. Everything just cycles. Everything is just one eternal round. And it's really cool to see that. It's really cool. We're not in charge at all with anything, because no matter what human beings want to do, everything was here before us, and it would be here without us, and actually be better off without us. There's no opinion to that. And as far as things that aren't us, just things of the earth, and it'll all be here after us. I mean, yeah, there's so many like animals and plants that have gone extinct, as in they don't exist anymore because of humans. And that's not something that couldn't happen without humans, but man, I mean, the amount of animals that have gone extinct is I'll word it this way: the amount of animals that do go extinct is getting progressively higher as human beings are creating more man-made unnatural things. So, but then the thing is, like, everything will just cycle in the way that it does and needs to, because even the things that we're creating, they're just going to decompose and go back into the earth as well. And yeah, I was thinking about today, actually. I was driving in a car, and I was thinking about how I used to have like a belief on global warming, and like I had a certain side I'd take to it. But it's what I always talk about. We don't get to decide truth, and no matter what sides we want to have to anything, truth is truth. And there's no kind of need to even try to say, at least as of right now within this podcast episode, I'm not going to necessarily say if it's just because of humans, and if so, in what ways, like, and things. But when it comes to global warming, like, you just think about the earth and any kind of historical stuff that's just, that's actually real, that's not somebody just claiming something. The earth goes in cycles. It just does, I mean, there's decades or centuries or however long, even just a few years, that it's quite a bit warmer than others, and then it's quite a bit colder than others. The earth is just itself. I mean, the earth's doing what the earth's doing by itself, even if human beings weren't here, is what I'm saying. But then there is a lot that we're doing, like I discussed, with the amount of animals that are going extinct just because of human beings. And there's no kind of opinion to that. No possible opinion to that. So, a lot of that's out of necessity in certain ways, where people just have to eat, and people who hunt animals for food, they sometimes just hunt more than they need, or aren't careful about the amount that they do hunt, and then the animals just can't reproduce as quickly as they're being hunted, and they just die off. because then, I mean, what'll happen in those cases is just the human beings will take out like most of them, and then whatever animals prey on those animals will just take out the rest. I mean, even if we're not doing like the entirety of the extinction, like we're just playing a part in an unnatural balance if we're not being as intentional as we can. So, but the point is, everything cycles, and our God is above everything, and it doesn't matter because we're always making mistakes. And when I say it doesn't matter, I don't mean it doesn't matter like we don't need to be intentional, but what I mean is, no matter what, that's what I was trying to mean by that. Our God can turn any and every situation around. He is the waymaker. But one eternal round, I want to come at it at this way for sure within this episode as well, where I discuss within the human body, because that's what we're about. The podcast is the gospel of Jesus Christ centered. The whole company is centered on the gospel, but we have discussions on the gospel here. But within the human body, I'm always talking about how our hands have this rounding to them. And you'll see some people nowadays in 2025 that their hands are almost flat. Like the back of their knuckles are almost flat. And when they put their fingers out, they're almost flat rather than actually rounding. Like your ends of your fingers naturally would round around your thumbs. And that's just how your bones work together, is rounded. So we also live in and yeah, see, that neutral wrist is straight out from the pinky. And a lot of people's neutral wrist becomes not anywhere near neutral because if you're using things that are so flat, your hand goes not neutral anymore. So if you're just listening to this episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast in audio form only, then you can't see the little visual examples I'm doing with my hands, but that's okay. This is also available in visual plus audio form as well if you are wanting to be able to see this if you're just listening to this. So our hands are rounded, and that's something I've discussed for months up until this point within the company. It was one of the main things within all the foundational videos that I made out in the field next to where I live at the founding of this company, on how certain things affect body mechanics and within the truth behind series and talking about the body's natural function. That's one of the biggest things that I was discussing within those videos, is the rounding to our hands. And everything within the gospel is metaphoric. Everything. It's crazy how the gospel works. We call it the paradoxical gospel of Jesus Christ, because a lot of things within it just entirely oppose themselves, yet they're both true, and it's very strange how that works, but our God is above all things. And everything is very metaphorical as well as actually literal, but like at the same time. It's really strange when you start to read doctrine. It's crazy because it's not something you have to understand at all, but it just makes sense, but at the same time, it's very backward. It's so strange. So it's really weird. There's just so many metaphors is the main reason why I started to mention that, but that's all great to mention as well. So one eternal round, the circle of life. Our hands have this rounding to them. Tree trunks are rounded. The sun is round. The moon is round. Our earth is round. It's like a silly debate thing nowadays. People are talking about the earth being flat, but it's what I always say, don't believe me. Just, things are just what they are. I don't care for anyone to believe anything that I say, but I'd like to relay truth. So I try to. And I do a pretty good job at it. I'm going to say I do. So, and the big thing with that, not a little side comment, I'm so grateful for not having the desire to be right. I just want truth. And so that's why it's so cool to be able to say, don't believe me, but listen to what I'm saying as far as like what it's apart from me, right? So yeah, it's universal truth, man. We don't get to decide what truth is, but we can't change it either. I think I already mentioned that within this episode, but never could be said too much, especially in modern 2025. People are getting a little bit far off with the only truth that actually exists that nobody can change. It's really silly, but we just get lost within our modern man-made world, and there's so much stimulation and distraction. So one eternal round, same thing, it's just, it'll all end at one point. That's why I say so often within this company, these videos will live on forever. The things that we do discuss apply to human beings forever because we get caught up in things every now and then and we have the potential to. We're just human beings. And so after all this like crazy, weird, out of touch technological time passes, this stuff still applies then, and people will then be able to see like, oh yeah, he was just talking about stuff that a lot of people just didn't see at the time. Yep. Just because it's not my decision. It's just truth. So we all have the opportunity to be able to see it, right? It's the gospel of Jesus Christ, the truth of all things. So one eternal round is such a beautiful thing. We live in a modern flat world. Countertops, floorings, tabletops, desks, our little technological things that we have that I just don't mention very often at all because they're just going to come and go. It'll be something completely different before we know it. But there's so much flat, and our hands don't work flat. It's silly. So I can approach that in all angles, and I've talked about it a lot already, and then we'll just talk about that forever as we do in the Image Clothing Company, just when and as we do. But when I'm talking about shoelaces all the time, it's one of our two prerequisites: shoelacing technique and tying them evenly over toward the center of our bodies, just to allow the body to have an unaltered foot. But shoelaces need to be rounded. And it's also so common for shoelaces to be woven into like a flat little rope nowadays. And that's just not what we need for the sake of a naturally functioning body. So it's crazy just how metaphoric everything is. It just is what it is. It's so sweet. Yeah, one eternal round. The circle of life, man. Everything's cyclical, everything's a circle. That's really sweet. Yeah, everything just comes full circle too. Like, that's pretty much saying the same thing, but I didn't really expect on talking about what I did with the whole technological time period that the world's kind of in right now within this episode. But I love this because ideally, everything that we can do here at the company is eternal. Everything that we talk about, I don't want to have the approach of anything to be trying to be something that only applies to a certain time, because we will be the same forever, our physical bodies as human beings. And so I want everything to apply forever, but not that we're going to try to like be afraid of saying things that only apply to a certain time, but it's just great to say things that can live on forever. That's the ideal, and that's a huge thing. So I am going to talk about that within this, kind of hitting it on both sides, where this whole technological age, not that I'm not saying for sure or at all really that we're going to have less technology as time goes on, but it just won't be the same as it is now. As far as the structure of the things that we hold and the shape of them, stuff just changes, and it always does. It always will. Except, yeah, that's the whole thing. Things of the world always change, but our God and the truth of all things never does or will change. So that's what I'm saying. Saying things that will apply to human beings forever is when we're discussing things that are the gospel of Jesus Christ. It's the truth of all things. It does not change and it does not leave ever. It will never. It can never. We cannot change it or decide for it to. So that's exactly what I'm saying, right? Things of the world, these little technological things that help us and aid us in a lot of ways, they really do. I wouldn't be able to be sitting here filming and recording the audio of me doing this podcast episode right now if we didn't have the little piece of technology available for me to purchase that I am using to do this. And I understand that. But at the same time, it's just a worldly man-made thing. And so that's why, okay, perfect, yep. there's nothing perfect besides our God. But perfect meaning, this is great. This really aligns with what I was saying about the paradoxical gospel of Jesus Christ. It's exactly what I am saying right now. I don't like the idea of having all this unnatural technological stuff all over the place, but it's paradoxical because it's so beautiful as the tool that it is. That's how I've done anything with this company as far as sharing anything besides just myself doing things is through technology. Up until today's date, it's because I have this little device that I'm using right now. It's the same one that I've used for every single video for In the Image Clothing Company, as far as I'm aware. And yes, it is. So, paradoxical. It's weird because both ends are entirely true. And that's crazy because they're opposites, but it's very opposition in all things. That's the gospel of Jesus Christ. Now, everything just has one eternal round. Everything just will come back to what it was. And there we go. Oh, man. That's crazy. But things that are just physically round as well when it comes to the human body's function. And when it comes to the way that our world is set up, well, our earth, yeah, things are just round. Everything has a cycle, I mean, even precipitation, like when it rains, what happens is there's water on the Earth's surface, it evaporates into the atmosphere, and it gets stored into the clouds until it gets too heavy to be up there, right? And then it precipitates, it comes back down. Everything has a cycle. The seasons, they cycle. That's what I was mentioning, how we schedule our earthly existence and understandings of things through time, but all what we call as quote unquote time is just the way that our earth circles the sun. Oh my gosh, circles. I wasn't even meaning for that to be one of the points within what I was saying right there. Yeah, the earth revolves, I guess, around the sun at the center of us. And both of those things, the earth and the sun, are also spherical, right? Rounded. And the seasons are something that just leave, but then they come back. It's a round. Everything's just rounded. Wheels. When we travel places, we do it with wheels because any other shape isn't going to just continually move. Again, eternally in motion, like just the truth of all things. It just keeps going. It's eternal, without beginning and without end. Alpha and Omega, our living God. He just is all of it. In the beginning, the earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the deep, and our God spoke, and his word was light. The reason I said it slow like that is because I'm not reading it. I just that's something that's what it says, but word for word, maybe not exact, but within the first book of the Bible, the book of Genesis, when it just talks about the beginning of this, our earth that we've been given, that our God created for us. So yeah, that's what I was saying about how his word never comes void. His word is eternal, and he can't go back on his own word, and his word always is what it is and always applies, and he is the perfect promise keeper. His word is life. He spoke things into existence. Everything's just one eternal round. We come to this earth and we leave. Like I was saying, we get pulled from the clay and we return to it. Everything's just a cycle. Wow. Yeah, one eternal round. The gospel of Jesus Christ. The truth of all things. Really cool. Man, I think I'm gonna wrap this up right there. That is beautiful. I'm so glad. I just love, I call it the gift of video. I love it so much. I get so humbled and grateful to be able to record things. And I've spent a lot of my life doing a lot of recording within video, and it's such a gift. So anyway, yeah, there we go. That's what I'm gonna say on One Eternal Round. This is episode 32 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. Now, we will have clothing available as the clothing company that it does say within our name, made out of 100% natural materials, allowing the body to stay centered by staying centered and fitting correct. We just allow our bodies to work. We don't get them to do anything because we don't have a say in getting them to do anything. They only do what they do. So, when it comes time for you to have the chance or opportunity to purchase In the Image Clothing Company clothing, please only do so if you try to get it in your size. It's common for people to wear clothing oversized, and that is entirely opposing our whole point of selling clothing as the company that we are, In the Image Clothing Company. So, like I said, today is the 5th of January 2025. Check out In the Image Clothing Company music if you'd like to. I am a fingerstyle guitarist, as well as just all the other ways that we approach music over there. And you can check out the main company side of things for just the anatomy of the human body and all the things that we talk about within clothing as well. So, one eternal round. Our God is here, and He is now. And that's the thing as well about Him being omnipotent. He's ever present. He's not just someone that will be there once we die, and He was there at the beginning, but he's there through it all. Eternity is now. We live in one eternal now. The memories we have are only memories of nows that were back then. He's always just now. And just like within a circle, like I was saying, there's no edges or corners to it. It's all the same thing, regardless of what part of it you're on. We live in an eternal now because it's all one eternal round. That's awesome. So, yeah, wow. I don't know if you can hear that train, but I can hear a train outside the window behind my head. There's a train nearby, is the reason. So, yeah, In the Image Clothing Company podcast. We do our best to just speak on truth, things that are eternal, things that are unchanging. And the way we do that is by being centered with our God. Because anything that we want to place importance on that is worldly, that comes and goes, like that fat content or muscle mass that I was talking about, which are things that we can place on top of the foundation, right? Versus the skeletal system of our bodies that is our foundation. All those things just change and they leave. The worldly things, the things that have hype, the things that we get all excited about, and yeah, just they're fleeting moments, but our God is eternal. So that's the only way we will ever be fulfilled. And we can see the truth of all things. Really, we can see Jesus Christ Himself in everything. And that's the goal. So, read the Book of Mormon. Don't let me tell you what to do. Read the Holy Bible. I'm not telling you what to do. But if you want to understand this whole existence that we have here as human beings, that's how you're going to do it, is by knowing Jesus Christ. And everybody has the same ability and opportunity to know Him because He's not out there somewhere. He's here and now, as I was saying. And it's not because I'm saying it. Don't believe me. But I want to express my gratitude to be able to be a disciple of Jesus Christ and be able to be... A disciple means a follower. And so being able to follow, as it says within Scripture, right, doctrine, multiple times, our God gets called the Good Shepherd. And the shepherd knows his sheep. He knows them. He knows the hairs on our heads. He has them numbered. He knows everything about us perfectly, and he loves us perfectly. And just being able to have the opportunity to have a personal relationship with a living, ever-present God is something that none of us deserve, but we're all given the opportunity to have. And that's where that whole paradoxical thing comes in within the gospel of Jesus Christ. So, yeah, a lot of gratitude. It's funny though as well, I mean, that's what I'm talking about with worldly things versus gospel things. You'll hear people who don't really talk about the gospel, but they'll talk about things like gratitude and how that's helpful to have as a human being and it changes your life. Well, within the gospel, we're commanded to look upon everything with gratitude and thanksgiving. Give thanks for everything, be grateful about everything, even the hard things, because with everything being one eternal round, and with there being opposition in all things, there's also scripture that talks about how everything works together for the good of those that serve God. And that just means anybody who's trying to follow the commandments of our shepherd. They're laid out very clearly within doctrine. Really, it's just, hey, be a good person. Do unto others as they would do unto you. Just simple things, right? The golden rule is what that gets called. So treat others how you want to be treated is another way to phrase that same thing. Now, man, okay, yeah. It's common nowadays for people to get a little bit skewed with the truth of all things. And there's this idea that people can attract things to themselves and create their own things and all this garbage. It's just untrue. It is not true at all. Don't believe me. It's just, there is only one truth. Don't believe me. But within all that, we're commanded to give out good and good will come back to us. And that's that thing that gets a little bit skewed and approached in an incorrect way nowadays. But as far as, there is a scripture that says, if you draw nearer to me, I'll draw nearer to you. Worded very similar, but that's the meaning. Our God tells us that we need to draw nearer to him and he will draw nearer to us. And he is almighty. And we're just little children who there's, as of 2025, somewhere around 7 billion plus other people just like us. And we are all equals. And so if an almighty God is telling us that if we draw nearer to him, then he will draw nearer to us, well, that's a lot of power that we get the opportunity to draw on. We don't have power of our own, but we get to use the power of our living God. And we're only going to do that to the degree that we are serving him to the best of our sinful by nature ability. So that's one eternal round in the sense of if we are doing good and we are serving him, it will come back around to us. But it has to be seen correct through the truth of the gospel of Jesus Christ, because things get skewed quick and easy. And I've been caught up in things that were quite skewed. Just about everybody does, and to degrees in their own times and ways. But we're here to learn. And that's the whole thing as well. I'm going to mention this too. I took my records out of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints last February. I've talked about this within the podcast for In the Image Clothing Company podcast. But now there's a 1-year period that you do have to wait when you have your records removed for whatever reason it ends up being. Mine was entirely voluntary on my part. I got deceived and there was a lot that happened that I went through and a lot of learning within that time up until now. But it's all one eternal round. Everything comes back to just the truth. And, I'm preparing to do everything I can to get my records placed back into the church when it comes February. That's next month. It'll be a year since then, and since they were removed by me. It's weird, man. It's weird stuff, but it's one eternal round. That's the thing. We we don't have a say on anything. And I love that, because that's what actually frees us, is the fact that we don't have the freedom, quote unquote, to change things. Once we realize that, then we can actually know what's true. Don't believe me, Evan Strong. It's the truth of all things. So yeah, the gospel's crazy, man. It's crazy what we're given, the amount of unlimited forgiveness that our God provides us. It's so, it's one eternal round, man. No matter where you go, you're always going to come back home. I mean, since our earth is a globe, I mean, you walk straight, and if you walk actually straight, like in a legitimate straight line, you'll just end up in the same location. Everything is just, it's all just round, man. Everything's one eternal round. In physical aspects, in ways that things come back to us. Gosh, I mean, just in everything, dude. In cycles. Yeah, it's really weird. So humbling, though. So beautiful. One eternal round, bro. All right. Well, I tend to get ready to wrap up videos because I don't want there to be unnecessary pauses, but a lot of times pauses are very beneficial to have for reasons. And so I tend to rush myself sometimes, and I don't want to do that. So yeah, one eternal round. Everything comes full circle. And I think that's a beautiful thing to see, kind of using my own experience as a testimony builder for anybody else, where no matter what I thought I wanted or what I was going to do or where I was going to go, trying to leave the church, because I didn't leave the gospel of Jesus Christ. I was going to other Christian churches in the meantime, and I was thinking that what I was doing was deepening my relationship with Christ. And that's what I'm saying about it being one eternal round, is that's what ended up happening. But because of realizing what I was missing after having taken my records out, I mean, because it took some time for me to realize what I had when I didn't have it anymore, and then I have now circled back. And we're always just going to be messing up as human beings forever in this life. That's just how it's going to be. But everything comes full circle, whether it's within this life or after we die. Because no matter what, we came from our God and we will return to Him. Everything is just cyclical, which means it cycles. So, yeah, one eternal round. Yep. And that is a really good way you can kind of tell one of the most beautiful ways worldly things versus eternal things is things that seem unnaturally square in a physical way or a metaphoric way, or unnaturally flat, or things that are rounded. You know, rounding is just natural in, like I'm saying, both metaphorical and physical ways. So except for fingernails. That's one thing I've talked about. The ends of our fingernails, if you cut the ends of your fingernails flat, rather than using like a curved pair of fingernail clippers, then they'll be, they'll be naturally supported so much better, and you'll have your natural grip strength, and your fingers will work in line nice and well. So, one eternal round, man. That is funny. That's one of those exceptions. And each time I talk about the fingernails, I say that. I'm like, it's funny because I'm always talking about things that are round, except for the fingernails. Cut them flat on the ends. Make sure they go all the way to the very tips of your fingers to support them, and cut them flat. And then the corners you can kind of soften. Man. Oh wow. A lot of gratitude, man. That's it. A lot of gratitude. I mean, even eggs are round. Like animals' eggs, to a degree, like they have a lot of rounding to them. There's not much that's anywhere near flat to the degree that our man-made things are. Yeah, just about nothing. All right. Wow. Keep yawning, man. Well, even like an arch, an arch is so strong because of the rounding to the top of it. Like within our feet, we have arches. But as far as like an arch that we've built to like support a structure, that's why it's so strong, is because there's that rounding there. And within the gospel as well, we talk about Jesus Christ being the key cornerstone, or the chief cornerstone, the head cornerstone, where within an arch, and I've talked about this quite a bit within the company, but an arch, it's that top middle piece that's actually what's causing the stability right in the rounding of the center of the top of it. And I mean, an arch is like, I don't know if it's but if not the most, one of the most stable structures that there could be. And yeah, just roundings to things, man. I haven't yawned, man, in like, I mean, I very, very, very rarely yawn now. It's been quite a long time since I've even yawned at all. Um, a lot of it is just the conviction within this episode. And also, like, I'm doing like I've been, throughout this episode, I've been doing releases on the right side of my leg, my right leg, on the shin bone, on the inside of that shin. Talking about dorsiflexion, bringing those toes up, the inside of that right shin, if that's the side that's been tied incorrect at the shoelace, that side, that muscle gets adhered to the inside of that shin right there. And this is beautiful just to document within this episode of the podcast. I mean, it's just real. It's what's happening right now. It's what's happening right now, is what I said. But yeah, I mean, like, where that calf is, right on the inside of that shin bone on that right leg, because it's been tied into external rotation for so long. So dorsiflexing that right foot actually uses more of that outside part of the leg, which isn't how it would naturally work, because the arch grips inward. So the emphasis when you dorsiflex would be more on the inside of the leg. Dude, this is crazy. Talk about real, talk about universal, unchanging truths, talk about in the moment breakthroughs. Really, as I'm talking about the gospel, and it's the Sabbath as well, man. It's Sunday today. So, no, that's beautiful to document within this. I mean, because that's something that we'll talk about all the time as we're telling people what parts of their body to address and release. Because that's what we talk about, the skeletal system. That's what it is. It's not the calf muscle. It's that the muscle has adhered to the bone right there in an unnatural way to try to stabilize when it hasn't been in its normal working position. I mean, you just don't expect this kind of stuff. You couldn't expect this kind of stuff. Stuff just happens, bro, when it does and as it needs to. We are not in charge, no matter what anyone wants to believe. I think it goes very well without saying, but that's myself included. It's not just because I'm saying these words. No, it's not me, bro. No, no, no. So, this is beautiful, man. I keep saying, and I am progressively more saying, if you will, that In the Image Clothing Company is going to be huge across the entirety of the globe. And I keep saying that, and it's not for me. Not about Evan Strong, me, not about my recognition or anything, no. And it's not about just having a company built for the sake of, you know, growing a company in the worldly sense of what a company means, but it's because of stuff like this. I mean, I'm sitting here just talking about the gospel, the truth of all things, and I have a breakthrough on my own shin bone that will change the entirety of the rest of my own physical life on this planet. Because if I didn't release this, unless it just did on its own, because now I am tying my shoes evenly and will continue to, that over time it just might. If that were to be the case, that would just take so much longer than having this breakthrough right here and doing this within the episode. But it's not only about that, because also I'm documenting this within the episode. And it just shows how real it is. Because that's the whole "don't believe me" phrase. Don't believe us, dude. We're just discussing truth, and I'm having a breakthrough right here that you can see. It's crazy. It's really, really nuts, and it's just so cool, bro. I'm just so grateful to be able to be the example where you can physically, at least, well, you can visually see within my own physical body that the changes from the starting of this company until, whatever time it is at the point you're seeing it, because it's just, I'm only getting progressively more back to natural. And oh gosh, just the timing of how everything works is not mine, not my timing. I am not choosing these things. I'm not deciding this, bro. I'm not in charge. This is not about me. No kind of fake humility that could even possibly be within that. It's just not. I couldn't do this kind of stuff. So it's unreal. But what I mean is I couldn't do this stuff on my own, but it's that whole thing, you draw nearer to me and I'll draw nearer to you, says our God, to us. And I am drawing nearer to our living God in all that I can do. And I'm just trying to get better at doing that within my sins that I always will continue to make. We're just going to mess up. It's so crazy, man. All we want is truth, and we're given it as long as we're willing to put ourselves aside. And that's not the easiest thing to do as a human being, but we have to. If we want anything that's real, anything that actually lasts, it has to be done. It's the only way it's going to happen. Our God is all. But that's why I say it's like so crazy and strange that he gives us the opportunity to like do what we want and choose things for ourselves, which is only in a damaging way. We can only choose to damage our own selves. But it's crazy because, yeah, it's just so weird how everything is set up, and you don't have to believe it, and it's just still there. We can't change it. We don't decide it. It's not up to us. It's just so unreal being able to be a part of this stuff, because like when we realize who we really are in the grand scheme of everything, it's like, oh wow, and you're really just allowing me to be a part of your kingdom and your plan. Like, we are always undeserving, but we're still going to be given things to the degree and in the ways and in the timing that our God sees fit. So strange. So anyway, yeah, this is episode, well, I already said, but it is 32 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. One eternal round. Yeah. I'm going to wrap it up just like that. Thank you. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. Stick around. We're just going to help people with stuff. Maybe I'm not going to wrap it up. That's what I mean. Like, I just love how real it is, I mean, it's crazy, man. I mean, I'm thinking about my children, too, when it comes to these podcast episodes. Like, yeah, as long as this is on the internet where people could see it no matter what part of the globe they're on, then it's for them as well. But But I mean, even my own children, is time capsule type stuff. We're just having discussions about universal truth. It's crazy, dude. That's so crazy. Man, I mean, yeah, just being able to put as much aside as we can, putting our own desires and opinions and self beliefs and views aside, and just desiring ideally nothing but our living God. And then we're provided for. Yeah. Gosh, I mean, just so much repentance. There's so much in my life that I just wanted, and desired and gotten. And no matter if I did work in what we would consider that being in a worldly way, I didn't deserve those things that I got. And it's not like they actually benefited me if they were just worldly type things. But we're given some stuff, man, that our God gives us. And it's just unreal that He would do those things for us. When we start to realize what's really happening, it's crazy. But that's what I'm saying with the whole one eternal round, where, I mean, there's periods of years throughout my life where I've just been so off the straight and narrow path, right? Straight and narrow is the path to heaven, right? Straight is the gate and narrow is the way. Meaning there's so much to choose from, so much broad stuff you can get caught up in or choose to spend your time with. And I've done that. And for periods of blocks of time that were a lot of time in our earthly understanding of what time is. And I still am allowed to circle back, but really what it is our God reels us back in. I mean, it's not us doing it. It's not like we get to choose if we I don't know. That's why it's a hard thing to describe, because it really is. We only get choices on one end. It's only choosing to damage ourselves. But after we do that, we still come back around full circle. Eventually, even if it's, we spend the rest of our lives until we die, opposing the gospel, which gospel just means good news. It's just the truth. But then once we die, we come back to the judgment seat of our God, and we're there at His feet, and we have to get judged for everything that we've done, the good and the bad. And that's not a scary thing, because we're all messing up. That's why I always say so clearly, we are sinful by nature. But that doesn't mean that we continue to live within our sins and to go on having the intention to continue to sin. We have to have the intention to change. But that's what's so weird, is no matter how much your intention to change is, we can't take back the evil that we've done. And there's been so much evil that I have done. And so being able to be accepted back into the glory of God, it's just so crazy. That's what I'm saying. It's one eternal round. It's just something you can't explain, something you can't fully be grateful enough for. And that's what I've been saying through prayer. I'm how could I ever possibly be grateful in a way that could actually matter to you, Father? Because you don't need me. I can't actually really help you. I mean, I can do actions that are furthering your kingdom, but you could do those things without a human being. How could we actually ever apologize in a way that actually could matter to our almighty God? That's what's so strange about stuff like this, coming full circle, coming back to the church. I was born into the covenant within the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I myself chose to remove my records and my covenants. That's what it means to be born into the covenant, into a promise that I will do all that I can to be a disciple of my God. And I broke that promise willingly on my end, yet I'm allowed to come back. How? Right? I don't know how to even get across how dumbfounding that is, because some people might not understand the gospel in their current time as the magnitude of what it really is. And so they might just think that it's like some religion that I like want to be part of. It's not. And don't believe me, but it's not. Because that's the whole thing. Again, in my little hiatus separation period, I was trying to paint the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints out to be a religious thing. It's not. It's just like the fullness of the truth that we are all around, that we can't deny. It's such a strange thing that I don't know. I mean, that's the whole thing about where I say it doesn't matter what we believe. It doesn't matter where we want to try to get to or go, or we always come back home. And whether that's like with our heads down and our tail between our legs because of how terrible we've been, or if it's out of rejoicing because we've been doing to the best of what we can, still sinning, just we will, but being righteous and just excited to be in the presence of our God again. Whatever end it's on, it'll happen without us being able to change it. We're going back home. It's one eternal round. It's really weird, man. Yeah, I mean, we don't deserve anything. And that's not to get discouraged on ourselves, but it's the opposite end. It's to just rejoice in what our God does give us, knowing that we don't deserve it. And he continues to bless us in the ways that he does, when and how he does. I just can't fathom that. Yeah, man. We gotta realize that we're evil people, man. And don't let me tell you that, but I mean, I sure am realizing how evil I am. That's in Noah's time, that's how it was. I mean, that's why Noah, the one who built the ark, that's why our God flooded the earth, because it says within scripture that mankind had become nothing but evil always, at all times. And really, I mean, we're really close to that, even at our best. It's really strange because we're just sinful, man. But that's how it's set up. That's why it is what it is. That's why we come to this earth. So strange. So, anyway. Yeah, perfect. A lot of people call their girlfriends or their wives perfect, or their husbands or their boyfriends perfect. It's not true. They are not perfect. If they ever make one single mistake, they are imperfect, and they have made many mistakes before you ever even had the chance to meet them. The only perfect thing that there actually is our living God. So, it's crazy that somebody perfect cares as much as he does about us imperfect kids of his. I mean, he's the perfect parent and the perfect guide, the perfect example. He's perfect love in all aspects of what that means. Yeah. Don't believe me. It's weird, man. All right. I mean, I could talk about anything and everything that comes full circle. I mean, I gave up music, and that's like the way I would word it. Like, gave up music, like put it up for adoption. I don't mean that to sound any kind of way that it shouldn't, but that's like how I felt about it. You know what I mean? Like, no, somebody else can be a musician. That's what I meant. I don't mean that to be mean. That's kind of sounded like it could be taken wrong. I didn't mean it like that. But what I mean is, yeah, I'm sorry if that was not the right thing to say. I mean, the way I was saying it, I didn't mean anything, but I just could see how that could be taken. But no, in all seriousness, that's what it felt like to me, you know? I mean, I wanted to play music, but I'm like, "No, I guess not." You know, plenty of musicians out there. Maybe it's not for me. Maybe I'm not doing this. And I stopped playing guitar. I stopped singing, you know, and I stopped doing everything, man. I stopped rapping. I entirely just stopped music. Tried to just give it away. Tried to stop. I tried to just, nope, 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 nope. And now here I am with Frank the guitar and Image Clothing Company music as 1/3 of our company. And all of a sudden, like, I'm singing this past week and like I'm better than I've ever been and I haven't practiced. And there's a lot of reasons to that, but also it's just everything comes full circle. I didn't want to play guitar anymore. I just was so fed up with it. But I was just battling things, you know? I mean, within the church, I was fed up with, okay, let's just get real. I was fed up with fake testimonies and people getting up on the stand in the pulpit and just speaking out of some script, and nobody actually seemed like they were being authentic. But we're not going to church for the other human beings. We're going to church for our God. And now here I am, like, doing all that I possibly can to come back to the church. As far as, like, actually have my records within there. And there will always be that potential for fake testimonies to be said. I don't know if that offends people. I don't care. I mean, there is a lot of people that do get up on the pulpit and they're just saying the words and they're just bearing a testimony that they've rehearsed or that they've heard. And that's unfortunate, but it'll always be the case. You know, I mean, I guess that's kind of what I was saying with music. It's like a lot of the reason why I stopped playing music was because I don't like secular music. I don't like worldly music. And music within the world is getting progressively more disgusting. And I didn't want to be somebody that was seen as a musician for the sake of people thinking that I was a guitarist and I played like rock music or metal. No, dude, that's disgusting music. Don't get offended. I mean, get offended if you want, but I'm not trying to offend anybody. But it's just secular, meaning worldly, meaning things of this earth. Well, things of this man-made world, right? There's the separation between the natural earth and then the man-made world. And I just want to make music that is real, that you can feel, and that reminds us that we're natural and brings us closer to Christ and that has gospel and doctrinal messages within it. And it was kind of like I felt like I couldn't do that. Like that wasn't an option that I had. Like if I was going to be a musician, no matter what, I'd have to be worldly about it. You know, like if I was going to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I'm mocking my own self, like in that time, right? Then like I'd have to be around these fake testimonies. I mean, in everything, you're gonna get people who are just entirely genuine or just about entirely fake. You know, I mean, but we don't determine things by other people. It's between us and our God. And so we get brought full circle in things whether we want to or not, as long as we're praying for the Father's will. If that's his will, he'll bring us back. And he'll redeem us again and again and again. You know, I mean, we don't just get redeemed once. We don't just get saved once. We always have the potential to need saving, man. And we bring it on ourselves. And that's what I was saying about being so undeserving. It's crazy. It's unreal, dude. It's really weird. So, yeah, just playing guitar, dude. I mean, somehow I'm playing guitar again, and I'm better than I was before. And pretty much immediately when I picked up another guitar after the break I took, I was better than before. Like I got Frank the guitar, right? The guitar that I have right now. I don't know. It's just crazy, dude. It's crazy. One eternal round, everything just comes full circle. You just don't deserve it. That's why it's so weird. I mean, sure, we can understand to the degree that we can that things come full circle, but we can't understand how our God is so merciful. I mean, I'm not that merciful. I never could be in this life. Yeah, it's crazy, dude. It's really weird, man. One eternal round in all aspects, in all ways. I mean, everything that you could call one eternal round. It's just that's our God, because that's His word, and it is eternal in itself. So just crazy stuff, dude. This is In the Image Clothing Company podcast right here. I mean, yes, everything that we discuss, ideally we're discussing things that have a real, actual good purpose and reason to discuss them, but that's why I say that this podcast is discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ. Even if in certain episodes of it, the majority of the time that the episode is like discussing the anatomy of the body or something, and then there's like a gospel message within there, or like toward the end. That's why I say this is a podcast on the gospel of Jesus Christ, because this is what matters, is getting real rooted doctrinal discussions going. Truth. Gosh, dude, and I'm just as human as anybody else, dude, and sometimes I get the potential to just start thinking that like certain conversations are worth having when I'm not gonna say that they're not, because I mean, again, we're just messing up. We're just back and forth. We're just left and right, and even our mistakes get used for our God's glory, because in our mistakes is where He can show, His power and His ability to change us, because then we are different after those mistakes, but not because of us, right? I mean, so no matter what we want to say, it's all just intentional. It's all right. It's just what I'm saying mostly is that the gratitude that I have for an episode like this, where you can see the emotion within me, you can see the testimony that I have that I can't sit here and fake. Dude, that's why I have this company. That's why we are in the Image Clothing Company. That's why it's in our name. Because the gospel of Jesus Christ is the truth of all things. I don't care who believes that. Even if it's me trying not to. I don't care. Don't believe me, dude. It's crazy, dude. I remember like primary. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna sit here and talk all day, dude. And there's no problem with that. It's just that's why I'm so grateful for this podcast. Because I can sit down anytime that I can set time out to turn on this thing, whatever I'm gonna use at the time to record myself speak. And I can just sit here and have discussions. And stuff that people can get things from. I mean, that's what's crazy. That's what I mean about being undeserving, dude. I mean, I'm just some kid, man. But like the stuff that I say and talk about, the perspectives that I have and the things that I've gone through and the stuff that I'm able to give and share can help people, bro. I mean, it can change people's lives just because I'm sitting here talking right now, just on the floor of a bedroom, sitting on the carpet with my back against the wall. Who knows who ends up hearing this, Who knows who ends up meeting Christ because I decided to sit here and talk. I mean, stuff like that, dude. It's insane. All right. Thank you.